Ava relaxed, leaning against his solid chest, feeling his heart beating as fast and strong as her own. Archer's kisses began to slide down her jaw, down her neck, each touch making Ava shiver. Her lips parted slightly in a ragged breath. She clung to his shoulders, feeling her body melt under each longing gesture. Hello everyone! Welcome back to our channel at the usual time. If this is your first time visiting our channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. In today's video, Jane is very pleased to tell you a very special and dramatic story called Ava and Her Students. Please watch. On a summer morning, the gentle sunlight spread across the yard, through the curtains, dyeing the room with golden rays. Ava, the math teacher, woke up in a peaceful atmosphere. She stretched gently, stepped out onto the balcony, and looked out at the small street in front of her house. A truly beautiful day off after days of struggling between work and nameless duties. Ava's house was in a quiet neighbourhood that was bustling in the morning. From above, she could see groups of people going to the market, elderly couples walking hand in hand, and a few children playing around the corner. The scene was so familiar that it made her feel a little nostalgic. The spacious 3-story house is the home of her and her husband, Blake, a mature and successful man. Blake works in the import-export business. He is not only smart and talented, but also knows how to take care of his family. Every day, despite his busy work, Blake always tries to come home to have dinner with Ava and their young son, creating a cozy and close feeling for the family. But in bed, he was like a machine, steady, safe, and lacking the strength of a man. Their intimacy never lasted more than a few minutes, as if it were just a marital duty that needed to be fulfilled. Ava never blamed her husband, but that feeling of emptiness grew inside her, like an invisible shadow covering their lives. One morning, Ava woke up, and Blake had already left for work. He was always like that, thoughtful, but also quiet, rarely showing too much emotion. She was used to her husband's absence every morning, but it didn't make her feel empty. She liked this private space when everything was peaceful and belonged only to her. Still wearing a thin white silk nightgown, Ava returned to the living room and plopped down on the soft sofa. She closed her eyes for a few seconds, feeling the rare relaxation seep into every cell. The slight drowsiness of the early morning made her want to do nothing but pick up her phone, scroll through Facebook and YouTube to find some entertaining stories. As the endless stream of information flowed by, a video suddenly caught her attention. On the screen was a news report about an 8th grader sitting in the corner of the room with a bulging belly and red, swollen eyes and a trembling voice. She talked about the pressure of studying, about the pain of her first love, about the feeling of being lost in a life that was moving too fast. Ava paused, her heart aching slightly. The girl's confessions made her suddenly remember herself in the past. She was also a shy, dreamy, and naive girl, going through her youth with timid emotions. Back then, when she was in high school, Ava had never dared to think about love. The first handshake with a classmate made her blush for a whole week, her heart beating erratically just because their eyes met for a moment. Her first love came during her first years of college, when a boy from the same school approached her. The gentle and loyal Koa Blake loves her with all the purity of youth, but because of that, he is always too shy. 2 years of love. The times they spent together had only stopped at awkward hugs and fleeting kisses. Ava had wanted more, but Koa had not had the courage to go further. If only Koa had been bolder back then, she thought, her heart suddenly stirred by a vague regret. Then Tuan appeared, a student from the University of Industrial Technology, located right next to Ava's school. He was not only a good student, but also strong and courageous, giving Ava a completely different feeling. Tuan exuded confidence and experience, making her, a girl who was used to being shy and safe, attracted from the first meeting. Ava's trust and body. It was a sudden rainy night in a small rented room that Tuan rented near the school. For the first time in her life, Ava experienced the feeling of crossing all the boundaries that she had always considered taboo. What she and Koa had been cautiously guarding for 2 years, Tuan had taken away in the blink of an eye, without many words, without any hesitation. Tuan led her into emotions that she had never known. After that, everything between the two became more intense. Tuan was different from what she had experienced. He loved her with the passion of youth, with all his instincts and most primitive desires. Every time they were together, it was not just hugs or hasty kisses, but long nights immersed in each other's breath and heartbeat. For the past half-year, Ava lived in endless ecstasy. Every time Tuan touched her, she felt the difference, as if every sense of hers was awakened. Every cell in her cried out to be loved and desired. Those days, she forgot everything, only knowing Tuan and the sweet moments in his arms. But then everything suddenly changed. Tuan's family encountered a major incident. His father became seriously ill, and the family's financial situation was in dire straits. Tuan was forced to drop out of school and return to his hometown to take care of his family. That decision came like a storm, sweeping away everything Ava and Tuan had. "I have no other choice, Ava," Tuan said, his eyes filled with deep sadness. Ava was silent. She wanted to hold on, but knew clearly that she could do nothing. Tuan had to leave, taking with him all the youth and the sublime emotions that he had sown into her life. On their last night together, they loved each other as if it was the last time, passionately, hastily and painfully. Ava cried, but she didn't dare to keep Tuan. The day Tuan left, she stood silently on the platform, watching the train disappear behind the white smoke. He disappeared from her life as quickly, violently and hauntingly as he had come. In the months that followed, Ava returned to her normal life, but her heart never stopped missing him. Tuan left a void in her, a void of her first emotions that could never be filled. She could not blame Tuan nor herself. Those were beautiful but also regretful days, a part of her youth that she would forever remember. Even though time passed, those memories were still there. Ava looked back at her phone. The video had changed to another part, but what she had just seen made her unable to stop thinking. Was it possible that the young generation now fell in love too easily? She sighed, reached for the glass of water next to her, and let her thoughts drift. Than and her current family brought her stability, but the old memories still clung to her like a shadow, undeniable, unforgettable. She told herself that perhaps everyone would have hidden corners in their hearts, stories that could not be told to anyone, and regrets that would never fade, to fill the emotional void and avoid letting her mind be haunted by those memories. Ava decided to open a tutoring class at home, not for money because her family was not poor, but Ava did not want to let her life sink into boredom and monotony like many other teachers. She found joy in teaching and connecting with her students, where she felt like she could be herself, not playing the role of a model wife or mother. In her homeroom class, there was Archer, a quiet and reserved student. Archer was good at most subjects, but math was his weakness. His recent test scores were consistently low, affecting Blake's overall grades in the class. One day during recess, Ava decided to call Archer aside to talk privately. "Archer, come here, I'll ask you something," Ava called him in a gentle voice. He looked up, a little surprised and worried. Ava smiled reassuringly. She understood that Archer was shy and was not used to being called by the teacher. "You're good at other subjects, but why is your math score so bad?" Ava asked, her eyes gentle but not hiding her seriousness. So I want to tutor you in math, twice a week, one session during the week and one session on the weekend on my days off. I will help you supplement your weak knowledge so that you can not only keep up, but also excel. Ava smiled, her voice gentle but filled with expectation. But there's one thing you have to promise me. If you agree to study with me, you have to try your best. She paused, her eyes becoming more serious. This is not only your opportunity, but also the opportunity of the whole class and me. I have great faith in you and I will always be here to support you in achieving this goal. As long as you promise to persevere, we will work together. Archer looked at her curiously. Ava continued, her voice low as if it were a secret. Only you and I know this. Don't tell the other students in the class, or they'll be jealous. Archer hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. Yes, I promise I won't tell anyone. That's good. Ava smiled softly. Come to my house this Thursday afternoon after school, straight from school. I'll teach the first class. That afternoon the weather was hot and stuffy, signalling that a rainstorm could come at any moment. Archer walked straight from school to Ava's house, sweat pouring down his body, his uniform sticking to his back. Standing in front of her house, he suddenly felt his heart beat faster, as if it was not just because of the weather, but also because of something deeper. Archer had long secretly admired his teacher. Ava was always well dressed, with a refined and elegant style. Although at school she usually wore simple shirts and office dresses, the way she chose her clothes always made her stand out in a subtle way, enough to make an impression without being ostentatious. To him she was not only a dedicated teacher but also a fascinating woman. The first time he came to his teacher's house, Archer couldn't help but feel nervous. The person he admired and felt an indescribable sense of closeness to was now waiting for him behind this gate. He stood there awkwardly for a few seconds, then finally mustered up the courage to ring the bell. The bell rang clearly in the quiet space of the hot afternoon, making him even more confused. Just a moment later, the door creaked softly and Ava stepped out to open the gate. Today she was wearing a simple white shirt with soft fabric pants, no longer the image of a teacher in familiar office clothes, but this simplicity made her look closer and more natural than ever. You're right on time, Ava smiled, opening the gate wide for him to enter. Come in, you must be tired in this hot weather. Let me get you some water. Archer nodded slightly, feeling his face burning, not sure if it was because of the hot weather or because of the confusion was rising in his heart. He walked into her yard, smelling the faint scent of jasmine from the bushes along the path, which calmed his mood a little. Ava led him upstairs to the study room. The space was neatly arranged with neat tables and chairs and a quiet air conditioner. Archer sat down on the chair, but his hands were still fumbling. He felt like his whole body was burning up, not only because of the weather, but also because of the strange feeling rising in his heart. Ava placed a glass of cool water in front of him and sat down next to him, smiling gently. Drink some water, and then we'll start studying. I believe that if you try, after just a few sessions, you'll find that math is no longer a difficult problem. Archer picked up the glass of water and drank it all in one gulp. But the feeling of nervousness in his heart did not disappear. He sat in front of his desk, holding a pen in his hand, but it seemed that his mind was not completely focused on the math problem in front of him. The first time he came to her house, he was both nervous and filled with an indescribable feeling of excitement. This was no longer the strict Ava in the classroom, but a different version of her, closer to everyday life and somehow attractive. He had always admired her for a long time, and now that he was closer to her than ever, that feeling became even more evident. Ava walked around the table, her eyes attentively observing each line in Archer's notebook. Every time he made a mistake, She bent down to instruct him, her voice still gentle but strict enough. Every time she bent down, she felt Archer's eyes stopping on her body, not a normal look, but a passionate attention. She knew that look well. This student's eyes were strangely similar to Tuan's, her ex-lover. The way Archer looked at her, both innocent and full of admiration, as if he wanted to hold on to every moment when she was near. Ava frowned, trying to stay calm, but couldn't deny the turmoil in her heart. She stepped back a little, stood up straight, but the uncomfortable feeling from that look still didn't go away. Old memories flooded back, filling her mind with fragments of a time long gone, a time when love, passion, and desire once burned her heart. She cleared her throat, trying to pull herself back to reality. "Wrong. You have to start over from here," she said, pointing her finger at the calculation Archer had written wrongly. Archer blushed in surprise, quickly bending down to correct his paper, but the look in his eyes, even for a moment, said it all. An admiration that couldn't be hidden, a growing emotion that even he himself didn't fully understand. Ava looked at Archer intently once more, clearly feeling the wave of emotions rising from the depths of her heart. Was fate teasing her, bringing back the shadow of the past in the form of a young student? Archer's deep eyes reminded her of Tuan's eyes, the man who had once entered her life and left behind unforgettable passions. Ava took a deep breath, trying to tell herself that it was all just a coincidence, that those feelings would pass, but for the first time in many years, her heart did not listen to reason. A stirring feeling rushed over her, like a smouldering fire that had just been fanned. Every memory of Tuan appeared clearly, making her feel like she was being drawn into the vortex of the past. Tuan had brought her to passionate feelings that her husband, Blake, could never bring. And now Archer, with his immaturity but full of desire, appeared at the exact moment when Ava longed to be loved, to feel like a real woman. Archer's eyes made her flutter, and for the first time in many years, Ava found herself longing to touch someone again, to experience the feeling that marriage could not bring. Ava knew she could not stop this feeling. In the second class, she decided to test her limits. On a Saturday afternoon, Ava stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her thin, light blue silk dress, turning slightly to look at herself. The loose tank top revealed her slender shoulders and collarbones, with a hint of sexy cleavage below, and a pair of light shorts revealing her long legs. She knew exactly what she was doing. This nightgown was not an accident. It was a hidden invitation. For the first time in many years, her heart was beating fast for someone, not her husband, the man who once made her feel safe, but who had turned Blake's marriage into a series of boring, monotonous days. But Archer, the young student, with his strange, longing eyes that seemed to pull her back to the happy days with Tuan. That magical feeling she had not experienced for a long time. When the doorbell rang, her heart felt something unusual. The gate just opened. Archer was standing there, his figure small. Ava seemed to jump. She walked down to open the gate, still keeping her gentle but hidden smile, while Archer, with his sweaty uniform, his face was a bit shy, but his eyes could not hide the confusion and desire. "Come in. It's so hot today," Ava smiled, pulling the gate wide. Archer nodded and walked into the house in embarrassment. The gentle scent from her body wafted past, making him breathless. His whole body seemed to be caught in a dream, with no way out. He walked up the stairs, following the teacher, his eyes unconsciously following her every step, feeling every soft curve accentuated by the thin nightgown. In the classroom, the space was quiet except for the gentle hum of the air conditioner. Ava sat closer to Archer than before, her hands brushing his as she pointed out the lesson. The touches seemed accidental, but Archer knew they were not accidental. Every time the teacher's body brushed against his, An indescribable shiver ran down his spine. Ava could see Archer's confusion, the boy sitting tensely, as if all his senses were awakened. She liked this feeling, the feeling of control, seeing a young student drowning in a desire that he himself did not know how to control. "Are you hot?" Ava asked softly, her voice soft but full of meaning. "Yes, a little," Archer replied, his voice trembling. Ava leaned in slightly, her arm brushing his. She smiled as Archer blushed and swallowed. Her breath fanned out between them, creating an undercurrent of tension that they both felt. Everything was becoming hazy. Ava was no longer sure of her limits. She only knew that she had been craving this for too long. She leaned down, deliberately keeping the distance between them so close that Archer couldn't help but feel her cool skin through the thin silk. Ava looked into Archer's eyes, deep and passionate. She knew he was completely caught up in this vortex, and she had no way back. Her heart was pounding, her whole body was on the brink of an irreversible turning point. But at that moment, the sound of a car engine came from outside the gate, the familiar sound of Blake's car, her husband's. Ava was startled, her whole body stiffened. She jumped up, hastily stepping away from Archer. She adjusted the soft silk shirt on her shoulders, trying to regain her composure. Her heart was pounding, not only because of the surge of emotion, but also because of panic and surprise. Her husband was home. Ava spoke softly, as a gentle reminder to Archer. He nodded, trying to force himself to return to the book in front of him. The atmosphere that had been thick and tense a moment ago suddenly seemed to disappear, leaving behind a strange silence. Ava regained her composure so quickly that Archer didn't know if what had just happened had actually happened. Blake walked in, looking around the room with a relaxed smile. "Are you two studying? It's the weekend, so you can go home early." Ava turned and replied in a gentle voice, "Yes, I'm tutoring Archer for a bit. You go down and rest first. I'll come down when I'm done teaching." "Okay, then I'll go down first," Blake said, and walked out without a trace of doubt. Blake's footsteps faded away. Ava turned to Archer, smiling vaguely as if nothing had happened. "It's late. I'll go home. We'll continue studying next time." Archer nodded. He hurriedly packed up his books and walked down the stairs in an indescribable awkwardness. Ava walked him down to the gate, both of them silent. When Archer was out of sight, she stopped, her hand gripping the gate. Her heart was still pounding in her chest. The emotions that had just flared up had not yet subsided. She knew clearly that she had reached a dangerous boundary, and what was worse was that she didn't want to stop. She knew clearly that this was only the beginning. The third day of school came. Blake informed Ava that he had to go on a business trip for 2 days and couldn't come home tonight. The last text from her husband before boarding the plane was just the familiar short words, "I'll be back Friday night. You and the baby should go to bed early." Ava read the text, put the phone down on the table, and a smile appeared on her lips. Tonight, the house would be just hers, and tonight she had plans. Sending the baby to her parents' house as usual, and another study session with Archer, no longer as reserved as before. Ava knew that the feelings between them had gone too far to stop. Ava texted Archer to come home at 6 p.m, have dinner with her, and then study together. It was an invitation she couldn't refuse, and she knew he would understand that. That night, Archer arrived at Ava's house on time, as if he had been waiting for this moment all day. He had showered and dressed in a simple t-shirt and jeans, but from the moment he stood in front of her house, his heart was beating faster than usual. He rang the bell, and within seconds Ava appeared. She was wearing a soft, dark red silk dress that hugged her body, the off-shoulder dress revealing her fair skin. Her hair was loose and her lips were smiling slightly when she saw him. Ava didn't look like a teacher at this hour. She looked like a woman waiting waiting for something more than a lesson. "Come in!" Her voice was soft, but contained an irresistible invitation. Archer stepped in, and as soon as he closed the gate behind him, he knew that this lesson would be different. The house was strangely quiet and warm today, as if this place belonged to them and only them. Ava had prepared a simple but complete meal, dishes she knew Archer would enjoy. The two sat across from each other, the soft yellow light covering the room, creating an intimate and close atmosphere. She didn't need to say much every time their eyes met. They both knew that this was not just a normal meal. "Eat. Don't be shy," Ava said, smiling gently, but her eyes were full of hidden meaning. Archer held his chopsticks, but his hands were still shaking a little, not because he was hungry, but because of the feeling of excitement rising in his heart. Every time the teacher bent down to take the food, her dress slipped down slightly to reveal her smooth shoulders, making him unable to look away. And Ava knew it. She felt Archer's eyes on her, and that only made her desire stronger. After dinner, Ava stood up to collect the 8 chopsticks. A soft clanking sound echoed in the cosy kitchen. Archer sat quietly at the dining table, his excitement rising. He looked at Ava's figure in the soft light, her gentle, graceful movements making his heart beat faster. "You go up to your room first. I'll be right back after I'm done washing up," Ava said softly, but with an undeniable invitation. Archer nodded, swallowed, and stood up to walk up the stairs. He knew that today would be unlike any other class. The space, the atmosphere, and even the teacher's eyes all signaled something was coming, and he couldn't stop. When Ava entered the room, Archer was already waiting. Her hands and feet were fumbling, not knowing where to put them. She closed the door behind her, the small sound ringing out like a signal, ending any remaining restraint. In the soft light, the deep red silk dress she wore hugged every line of her body, sexy yet delicate. Ava walked up to the board, picked up a piece of chalk, and started writing some calculations to create a normal study atmosphere. But she knew that everything was going far beyond a lesson. She leaned over the board, her skirt sliding slightly, revealing her bare shoulders and a smooth back under her silky, fragrant hair. Archer sat below, unable to take his eyes off her. Every time she wrote on the board, her skirt slid down a little more, his heart pounding so fast that it felt like it was about to burst, and the desire in his heart had exceeded the limit that he could no longer contain. Archer suddenly stood up and walked towards Ava. His heart was pounding, his hands were shaking, but he didn't hesitate. When he got close to her, he wrapped his arms around her waist and hugged her tightly from behind. Ava was startled. "Great. You've crafted a very compelling and dramatic story. Here's a spelling and grammar fix that keeps the content of your script intact, while adding a few small details to make it more vivid and engaging." Fix. The chalk fell from her hand, but she didn't protest. A moment of confusion passed, but it was quickly replaced by surrender to the overwhelming wave of emotions. Archer pressed himself against her, feeling the warmth of her body. His breathing was rapid, his heart was pounding, but his arms tightened, as if afraid that if he let go, everything would disappear. Ava stood still, feeling his warm breath against her back. A faint smile played on her lips. "Archer," she called his name softly, her voice a mixture of gentle reproach and encouragement. Archer held her tighter, his face pressed into her fragrant hair. His hands slid up her body, each touch fueling the hunger that was rising inside her. Ava didn't resist. She knew she wanted this as much as Archer did. The emotions she had buried for so long, the desires that had been suppressed by her cold marriage, were now awakened more fiercely than ever. She turned to face her student. Their eyes met, no longer shy, no longer afraid, just a storm of passionate emotions, ready to sweep everything away. Archer didn't hesitate any longer. He leaned down, his lips finding Ava's, and this time she didn't shy away. Their kiss exploded with desire and intensity, as if they had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Both of them were wrapped up in each other, no longer thinking about right or wrong, no longer caring about tomorrow. The door closed, and tonight there were only two people left in this room. Archer kissed her deeply and firmly. His hand slid down her back, searching for every touch, as if to make sure Ava was really there, right in front of him. Ava shivered as Archer's fingers traced every curve of her body, both gentle and bold. "Are you cold?" he asked softly, not waiting for her to answer. Archer pulled her closer, letting the warmth of his body spread and warm them both. Ava relaxed, leaning against his hard chest, feeling his heart beating as fast and strong as her own. Archer's kisses began to trail down her jaw, down her neck, each touch making Ava shiver. Her lips parted slightly in a ragged breath. She clung to his shoulders, feeling her body melt under each longing gesture. "Archer, don't stop," she called his name, her breath hitching, her wet lips trying to find their own breath. But he didn't respond with words, just leaned down to kiss her again, a passionate kiss full of desire, as if he wanted to devour every precious moment. Ava felt her body drifting along with Archer's movements. His hands slid lightly over her skin, the warmth of his fingers intoxicating her. His hands stopped at her waist, squeezing gently, as if he wanted to keep her in his arms forever. Ava responded by tightening her arms around his neck, pulling him closer. Her fingers tangled in Archer's hair, tugging lightly, causing him to let out a soft moan, a deep, indulgent sound. The two of them were entwined, no longer having any boundaries between reason and emotion. Every touch, every breath, every heartbeat were all in sync, as if time had stopped in this small room. Archer pulled Ava up, placed her on the desk, and they both fell into each other, leaving no space between them. His lips slid along her neck, their rapid breaths mingling, making the space seem more cramped with the heat of their emotions. "Do you like it?" Archer asked again, his voice hesitant, but also heavy with desire. Ava looked at him, her eyes shining with determination and intense emotion. "Good," she replied simply, but her voice contained everything she felt. They found each other again, letting their emotions wash over them. The small room was now a private space for the two of them, where all inhibitions and worries had been completely removed, allowing both of them to immerse themselves in a world of their own, where only love and desire remained. That night was Archer's first time, so he was so strong. As for Ava, this was no less than her first time, the first time her instincts were awakened after days of dormant emotions. They did it for 2 hours, and it was done. When the room returned to its original silence, Archer quickly put on his clothes and asked permission to leave, because if he came back late, his parents would be suspicious, and he also knew that there was no need to rush. Once he had done it, there would be many more times. After he finished dressing, he picked up his bag and kissed her forehead goodbye. "You're great. I'll teach you more deeply another day." Ava didn't say anything, and just smiled as if she agreed. Ava and Archer's relationship changed completely. Studying was no longer just about studying, but Blake's secret dates. Archer still went to Ava's house every week, but they both understood that the goal was no longer to study. Ava's second-floor apartment became Blake's private space. Every time he came, Archer walked through the familiar door with his heart beating, not because of the difficult math problems, but because of what he and his teacher would do. Every time they were together, Ava and Archer became more daring. They were drawn to each other like two lost people, immersed in moments that they both knew were wrong but couldn't stop. Every time the sound of the classroom door closed behind them, they turned Blake into completely different people, no longer teacher and student, but two people lost in secrecy and fear. Archer, take advantage of it. Your husband is away on a business trip. We don't have much time, Ava whispered, her voice urgent but also full of desire. Archer said nothing, only responded with a tight hug. Ava had become the Blake he couldn't let go of, and he knew he had gone too far to turn back. Ava and Archer's breathing mingled, more urgent than ever. The two of them were tightly wrapped around each other on the sofa in the room, like two geckos. The dim yellow light covered the room, highlighting the emotional atmosphere. Ava lay below. Archer lay above, her eyes sparkling with desire. Her red silk dress had slipped off her shoulders, her fair and hot skin revealed under her student's fingers. Archer seemed to be lost in a fairy dream. Her lips found hers in deep kisses. Archer! Ava softly called his name, her voice whispering through her breath, leaning close to his ear. She hugged Archer tighter, as if this was the last time she could enjoy this feeling. It had been a long time since she had found the happy moments that her marriage had long forgotten. The kisses, the touches, everything became more and more daring. Ava breathed heavily. Every cell in her body felt like it was on fire. Everything outside seemed to melt away, leaving only two people with a desire burning them from within. Suddenly, the door burst open, just as they were about to climax. The sound of the door hitting the wall interrupted their moment of silence. Ava and Archer both turned around, eyes wide with horror, when they saw who was standing in front of the door. Blake, her husband, had returned without warning. Blake stood there, his eyes open for a moment, then turned to Blake in rage and pain. His face was red with rage, his hands clenched. He had just returned early from a business trip, hoping to surprise his wife. But what he saw before him crushed any dreams. Ava and Archer were still not separated, Ava's red silk dress falling down her body, her shoulders exposed in the pale yellow light. Archer stood still, his whole body frozen, his face pale with fear. The air in the room thickened, only the heavy breathing of each person remained. Blake took a step forward, his eyes red as if he wanted to swallow the two people in front of him. What is this?" he almost growled, his voice suppressing a rage. Ava hurriedly pulled up her skirt, but her hands were shaking so much that she couldn't do anything neater. She tried to open her mouth to say something, but all the words were stuck in her throat. Archer took a step back, his whole body trembling, unable to say a word. Blake looked from Archer to Ava, his eyes filled with pain and disappointment. "Is that him? This guy?" he said in a voice like thunder in the small room. Ava tried to speak, her voice breaking. You're not who you think you are." But that meaningless excuse only made Blake angrier. He walked quickly towards Archer, grabbed him by the collar and pulled hard. "This is unbelievable. What do you think this is? You came to my house to do this?" Archer stuttered, not knowing what to say. His hands were shaking, trying to pry Blake's iron hand off his neck. "Uncle, calm down. I'm sorry." But Blake had lost all composure. He pushed Archer hard towards the door, making him stagger, sadly walking out of the house. "Get out of my house before I lose my composure." Archer did not argue. The boy quickly grabbed his coat and rushed out of the room, his short legs as if frightened. His footsteps echoed on the stairs. Each step seemed to carry a heavy pain that weighed down on his young heart. When the door closed, Ava and Blake were the only ones left in the apartment. A suffocating silence. Ava sat still on the sofa, her whole body shaking with fear and anger. Blake moved closer to Ava, his eyes filled with pain and resentment. "Ava!" Blake said, his voice low as if trying to control his anger. "Why?" Ava couldn't answer. She knew that there was no suitable explanation for what had just happened. Everything had spiraled too far out of control, and now the consequences were determined before her eyes. Ava raised her head, tears rolling down her cheeks. She couldn't meet her husband's eyes, nor could she find a reason to justify her mistake. Blake took a deep breath, trying to hold back the pain. He looked at Ava one last time, his eyes cold and full of disappointment. "I will not forgive you," he said, each word like a knife cutting into her heart, "and we will have nothing more to do with each other." With that, he turned and walked out of the room, leaving Ava in utter despair. The door closed behind him, taking her last hope with it. Ava sat silently in the quiet room, tears falling uncontrollably. She knew that everything was over. Her marriage, her wrongful love with Archer, and the life she thought she had. Now all that remained was emptiness and a never-ending pain of regret. Not long after that fateful day, things could not be kept secret. Although Blake did not tell anyone, rumours began to spread among Ava's neighbours and colleagues. The matter became serious when the parents of some students in the class also heard rumours about the inappropriate relationship between the teacher and a student. The school board quickly verified Ava's situation. Ava knew that she had no way back. The tired eyes of her colleagues, the cold criticism of the school board, made her understand that everything was over. "Miss Ava," the principal said in a disappointed tone, "the school cannot keep you any longer. This incident has seriously affected the honour of the school and your career. You will have to accept disciplinary action and end your work here." Ava sat still, her face pale and her hands shaking. She couldn't say anything. She knew she had lost everything. Not only her job, but also her honour, the respect of her students, and what she thought would be a stable future in education. Blake wasn't home the day Ava was disciplined. After witnessing the painful scene, he packed up and moved out. Without another word, without a goodbye, he left a divorce petition on the desk with a few short lines. "Sign this. Everything between us is over." Ava looked at the petition, holding the pen in her hand, her heart aching. She knew that this marriage could not be saved, but when faced with the petition, everything still collapsed inside her. With a trembling hand, she signed her name, officially closing a chapter in her life that had brought her stability but also blandness. As for Archer, after the incident was exposed, Archer could no longer bear to go to school. He could not face his friends, teachers, or the curious, contemptuous eyes of those around him. Although the family did not know all the details, they felt the pressure on their son growing heavier. "I have decided," Archer's mother said one morning. "We will move to the south. You cannot continue here any longer." Archer remained silent and did not object. He knew that leaving this place was the only option. He took a leave of absence from school and packed up everything, moving with his family to the south to find a new start. But he also knew that no matter how far he went, the memory of Ava and what had happened would forever be a scar in his heart. As for Ava, after signing the divorce papers and leaving the education industry, Ava felt lost. She didn't know who she was and didn't know where to start again. The house that was once full of laughter and family meals was now just a quiet place full of memories, where she faced her broken memories. Ava lived day by day with temporary jobs, avoiding familiar places. She was no longer the teacher Ava respected by her students, no longer the good wife beside Blake. Now she was just a lonely woman, living with mistakes and regrets forever, unable to be erased. As time passed, Ava heard from acquaintances that Archer had settled down with his family in the south. He had left everything that had happened here behind, starting a new life. But Ava knew that no matter how much time passed, both of them would forever carry in their hearts unforgettable memories, memories of the brief moments that had shattered everything in their lives. Life had no place for mistakes like Ava and Archer's. They had left wounds that would never heal and inevitable consequences. Both of them had to pay the price for their emotions that had crossed all limits with their own futures and happiness. In the cold house, Ava sat by the window, looking out at the familiar, now unfamiliar street. She knew that her life had changed forever, and there was no way to return to the old road. What remained was just endless pain. So our story has come to an end, but it still leaves you and your friends with a profound comment. What do you think about Ava and Archer's actions? Leave a comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to support Jane and the program's production team. And now, we would like to say goodbye and see you in the next videos.